Welcome everyone to our Tech Talk. It's great to have you here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Our Tech Talk today is called What's on the Horizon in End User Computing. We're joined today by Thomas Berger, Product Management at Citrix, Richard Faulkner, Solutions Architect at Ferroque Systems, Todd Hsu, President of Ferroque Systems, and myself. Hi everybody, my name is Amber and I look after the marketing here at Ferroque. Thomas Berger is a Senior Principal Product Manager in the Citrix App and Desktop Virtualization team, where he focuses on integrations with Google Cloud and sustainability. During his almost 20 years at the company, Thomas has held various leadership roles in technical marketing, consulting, readiness, and market intelligence. Prior to Citrix, he worked in different consulting roles for EUC infrastructures at a variety of multinational companies. Richard has been a fervent supporter of end-user computing for over 2 decades, primarily working on the reseller side, which enabled him to adapt new technologies early. Currently a solutions architect at Ferroque Systems based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, he thrives on sharing his knowledge about technology and assisting IT staff in optimizing digital workspaces for employees. Originally from New York City, Rich has lived across the U.S. and served as a nuclear engineer in the U.S. Navy on submarines before transitioning to an IT career. And finally, Todd Hsu is the president of Ferroque Systems. His previous consulting company, TH Consulting, was acquired by Citrix in 2012, at which point he became the director of Citrix Consulting Services Canada. Todd joined Ferroque in 2020, and we are now a Citrix Platinum Plus partner in Canada. Welcome, gentlemen. It's great to have you here. What is new and what's on the horizon in end user computing? Well, in the past year, significant changes have occurred in the Horizon customer landscape, with VMware being acquired by Broadcom and subsequently raising hypervisor costs. Additionally, the sale of VMware's end user computing software to KKR has left many customers uncertain about the future of their software, pricing, and support. These developments have led Horizon customers to question their current end user computing environment and consider alternatives. One compelling option is Citrix desktop environments, known for their robust features, scalability, and reliable support. This webinar will delve deeper into these changes, exploring why now might be the ideal time for Horizon customers to evaluate Citrix as a viable alternative to navigate the evolving landscape of end-user computing solutions. Today, we'll highlight some things to note in the Horizon divestiture, as well focus on the advantages of Citrix as a robust and streamlined alternative, detailing its distinctive features that promise to enhance your organization's digital workspace. With a comparative lens, we will dissect the intricacies of Horizon versus Citrix, illustrating the simplified architecture and ease of transition that Citrix offers. At this crossroads of change, Ferroque Systems stands ready to guide enterprises through the transition, armed with a wealth of experience in both platforms. We'll also provide guidance on who should consider transitioning and when, based on their current environment version. We'll discuss best practices for migration, ensuring a smooth transition to CVAD environments, and finally, we'll close with our roundtable discussion. For now, sit back, relax. I'm going to hand things over to Thomas and Richard.
Thank you very much. All right, then let's go. So as we've just seen, VMware is, and probably as we all know anyway, VMware is going through quite a bit of change since Broadcom has closed that acquisition. And besides making quite some significant changes to the company and licensing programs, which, as we heard, is making many customers, or is causing them sleepless nights and is making them reconsider. The biggest change has been that divestiture of the VMware end user computing stack, which was front and center from our perspective, obviously, for quite some time. And I think this has done because on one hand, UC obviously doesn't fit really the go-forward strategy of Broadcom, where they really want to focus on the platform business of the vSphere business, the cloud platform business. But also, obviously, one of the reasons must be that they want to refinance at least a small part of that $60 billion they spend on VMware. And obviously, the result of all of this is that KKR has acquired a large part of the VMware EUC stack, with VMware Horizon and Workspace ONE at the center of this acquisition for around $4 billion. And that means of that former VMware EUC stack, the only thing which is left is Carbon Black. We can see that on the left-hand side at the top, that is the only remaining part basically of that former business unit. But I'm sure we're going to see a buyer for that soon. But back to Horizon, which is the topic for today. And we have heard we've heard in the slides before that those changes have caused a lot of uncertainty and doubt among the VMware customers. And obviously, until the KKR acquisition has been closed, right now they just announced they want to do it, but there is regulatory approvals pending and so on. So until that acquisition has closed, we're not going to get much clarity out of that either. But most of the questions we get from customers when we talk to them, or actually when they approach us, I should say, these days, they revolve around like, how will KKR shape the company? And we've seen it with Broadcom. The real changes really only started after the acquisition has closed. And even then, it wasn't all the changes done on day one. It took some time. So the question is basically around how long will the uncertainty last and what will be the end result of all of those changes? The second question is around like, when we focus on Horizon, what additions, what offers will remain, or on the other hand, which solutions or features or add-ons will be deprecated? And finally, it's all around that untangling of the licensing and support agreements that has a big question mark. And everyone I spoke to expects price increases for Workspace ONE and Horizon. And this is mainly because obviously the EUC solutions are no longer part of VMware's enterprise agreements. Traditionally, VMware has used Horizon and Workspace ONE as deal sweeteners and provided it free of charge or at a very heavily discounted price to customers. But now the customers will need to pay for this. And of course, KKR wants their money back somehow, so there got to be a price involved. The other big question mark is related to pricing, which comes from the underlying platform vSphere, that is, in Horizon Land, because that's the only thing they really integrate with. And there was Horizon included vSphere, but is going forward, customers will need to pay for the platform in some shape or form, and we will need to wait until this is. Now, all of these changes around the uncertainty about how Omnissa, which is that new name for the company, has caused customers to really reconsider their investments in Horizon. And so if you are at this point, obviously the question is, why not reconsider in general and move to the industry-leading UC platform, which is Citrix. And especially for customers who currently use our Citrix virtual apps and desktops and Horizon in parallel, this move really would help to simplify the EUC stack a lot. Because obviously after the vendor consolidation, we're talking about one vendor to manage, one number to call in case of issues, the same admin experience, user experience across the entire organization and the application portfolio. And at the same time, this also typically means significant cost reductions because, of course, I have more efficient operations, streamlined maintenance, support process, reduced training needs, and so on. But also, I can make much better use of the Citrix investment, use the existing license to serve other users as well. So there are good reasons to move. So now the question is, why Citrix? What are the technical benefits of moving to the Citrix platform? And they're like, we could probably spend like an entire day going into the ins and outs of all of those differentiators, but there are like three distinct areas: experience, security, and management. And I just want to spend a little time and go and unpack each of them a little bit to give you an idea about why we believe Citrix is a much more capable platform than Horizon is on the other hand. So when we talk about management, starting with that one, a key part is the platform flexibility. Vendor login is a challenging thing, has been always nowadays with all the raises of prices we see, especially on Broadcom, but other vendors as well. Being able to switch platforms is quite interesting. But also, even without the pricing conversation, customers start acquire other organizations, they branch out and so on. So having flexibility is key. With Citrix, you basically, wherever it runs, we're going to integrate it, be that on-prem with vSphere or Nutanix or Sense Server, of course, be that a physical system, be that on AWS or Azure or Google or Oracle. We broker user connections to everything and we integrate it, we provide power management and so on. VMware Horizon is, as the name suggests, very limited. It's vSphere and physical, but that is the end of the conversation, so limited flexibility. The other part is that with Citrix, from a management perspective, we call it actually destination hybrid. We believe customers need to or will eventually end up in a hybrid architecture where you have pieces of your infrastructure running in the cloud, pieces of it running on premises, and then it all being solved together or served as one big thing to the users. From a Citrix perspective, we provide one solution which can do cloud and on-prem together. You can start on-prem and go cloud, or you start in the cloud and go on-prem. Either way, it works for your organization. In the VMware world, it's either Horizon on-premises or Horizon cloud. Sounds the same, it's not. It's two different things with two different management stacks. We're going to look into that later on, like what level of complexity that introduces compared to us. So we provide that unified solution, but also unified management across those two areas. And there's a variety of other things in the management stack which differentiate us and I believe provide significant value to admins and organizations. So there is things like service continuity in the Citrix in the Citrix land, where if the cloud service goes down, we keep the service running. There is CPU memory optimization built in, which really helps increasing density on the workers, which then reduces cloud spend. And there's a variety of automation options built in, like Terraform providers, global app config service, and so on, which really streamlines the operation. The second pillar is user experience. And user experience, I think from a Citrix perspective, is centered around the HDX protocol. HDX, in my opinion, and I think independent comparisons confirm that, is the best remoting protocol in the industry by any comparative standard. On the other hand, on the VMware side, Blast is really notorious for their high CPU consumption, and it really struggles when it comes to image quality. Talking also about the protocol, continue talking about the protocol, is Citrix provides support for modern codecs like H.264 and AV1 across on-prem and cloud, and that means even graphics intense workloads will get to the user, delivered to the user across even challenging networks with a very good quality and a very low in-session latency. In VMware world, it is limited. It's either limited in terms of where it's available, on-prem or cloud, or it sometimes is not available on all the platforms. And it's very unlike Citrix, where it's in both locations and across the platform stack. And maybe the third one to mention in the user experience side, it's all about redirection of peripherals, such as USB connected devices, for example, where we provide a broader platform support, broader device support, and obviously have it available on-prem and cloud. And maybe last but not least in the section, I always forgot, because it's pretty new, we announced it publicly last week actually, it's the macOS VDA. And that means customers now have the ability to virtualize Mac applications and desktops in addition to Linux and Windows as well, which opens up a whole new world and obviously gives customers the ability to serve even more users in their organization with the app and desktop virtualization solution. And the last pillar here is security. And in a nutshell, you can say in security, we are very contextual. We are very fine-grained and contextual, and make sure the user can always do their work. But if they do risky things, if they are not coming from an expected location or doing what the admin expects, we can trim down the access. We can trim down the applications they can access. We can trim down or add additional policies which restrict certain functions. We can also, if the user does risky activities within the desktop, we can see that. We can raise the risk score, and we can maybe lock the user off or alert the admin or ask for further authentications, factor authorizations from the user. And really none of that exists as an equivalent in VMware land. It's very static there. It's on or off, with the exception of like a handful of policies. And the security really, it's like oftentimes it ends up like being too strong or too open, and it's not a great experience for anyone. Now, security, experience management are like the big buckets of differentiators, and I hope I gave you a quick idea of what it is. Now, we saw that slide really quick is when we talk about Citrix and Horizon to VMware admins. then we often hear as an objection from the VMware people is, oh, the Citrix infrastructure. We believe it's so different and it's so complex and it will take a lot of time to even get started, and probably it's not worth even considering it. So what I thought is, like, let's bring up a slide where we compare the main ingredients, the core components of each side, and give you an idea about like what the differences really are. So when we start at the top, we have VMware on the left side, Citrix on the right-hand side. And when we start at the top or at the end user, we have a Horizon client left and a workspace up on the right-hand side. The next layer, the next click down, is talking about the access layer. So we have a similar set of components for the external access. So there's a load balancer and access gateway. We have a NetScaler gateway if we talk about a customer scenario where we need to have an on-prem gateway. But the customers from a Citrix land, they have the ability to say, oh, I'm good with the gateway service. So they can just subscribe to the service and don't have to deploy any component there. So it can be simpler from that perspective. And certainly we don't need a load balancer because our gateways have it implemented. Where we have an extra component, and I give VMware that, is the storefront. That is the web portal customers or users will hit when they authenticate and see all the icons, which needs a load balancer. That's a Windows service. It's an IIS-based website there. But that also can be replaced with the workspace service. So if customer goes for services both ends, all the components we have seen so far is basically really just the workspace app. All the rest comes from the cloud. If we go one click further down, we talk about the broker. And the broker in Citrix world, it is called the delivery controller. In the VMware world, it's the connection server. And these machines take care of like making sure the user gets access to the resource they actually request, do the load balancing and so on. We don't need a load balancer for that. Our delivery controllers figure that out on their own. So there's less complexity and less cost, obviously, from that perspective on the Citrix side. If we go further down one click, we get into one very commonly used, we get into the into the agents, which is the software component which needs to be installed on the virtual desktops. We call it Virtual Desktop Agent or VDA, VMware calls it Horizon Agent, but it's the same thing. It's the same concept at the end of the day. One further click down, we go now into a common use technology, which is called application layering. I'm not going to go into the details of what that actually is, but most customers deploy it on the VMware or the Citrix side. The big difference there is we have a so-called out-of-band solution. So the customers don't have to have any kind of load balancers or app volume server equivalents where all the requests go through. We really have like an out-of-band console, which is used to package those applications, and then they are just stored on a file share or on the local machine or wherever you want to store them. And when the user connects to it, we assign those layers and do the magic there. So, but there is no load balancer, app volume server, or a SQL cluster for that particular part in the backend. So it's simpler, I believe, from that perspective as well. And if we go to the very end of all of this, we get into infrastructure. The databases on the left-hand side, there are databases on the right-hand side. It doesn't really matter, it's SQL databases. One additional component we have, it's the license server on the Citrix side if we're talking about on-prem. So if we look at this from the highest level, it is not that different. Different naming, but most of the cases, I believe Citrix can actually have less components, less moving parts in all of that. Now, if we take it one step further and look at an example infrastructure where we talk about Horizon Cloud. And this is just an example infrastructure where we have 3 resource zones or sites, A, B, and C. And a few things to point out here. A and B in my example are hosted on Azure. That is just what VMware Horizon Cloud support. All they can do is Azure. And then there is, then they just use the typical cloud infrastructure pieces that consist of a pair of unified access gateways with a load balancer in front, an edge gateway, and of course the Horizon agent on the virtual desktops. The difference here, or different on this page, is site C, which is an on-prem deployment. And because Horizon doesn't really have a hybrid architecture, customers are required to deploy a full Horizon on-prem environment with all the components we basically just went through. And this Horizon side also comes with separate management, because there's only some lightweight management integration between the cloud. As soon as you go advanced or you do fundamental configurations, you're back to managing that on-prem side separately. When we contrast that with Citrix, we will see a few differences. We still have those three locations, but the just for the fun of it, I basically moved the middle one, site B, to Google Cloud just because we have the flexibility to do so, but it could also obviously be hosted on Azure. So we have two cloud-based resource zones, Azure and in my case, GCP, just for the fun of it. But you also see that the only components we need in those sites is the cloud connector. That is, and the agent software, of course, in the virtual desktops. For the gateway, I can use the gateway service. I mentioned that before. So unless I prefer to deploy my NetScaler gateway for some reason, all I have is a cloud connector and a VDA. So it's very simple. It's almost a headless deployment. The other thing we notice is when we talk about on-prem, it has the same components, the same architecture as cloud, because it is an integrated management. It's an integrated architecture. It also comes with integrated management, very simple to set up. So Citrix does provide that integrated, that unified management, unified look and feel, in contrast to VMware. So I would say overall, we have less moving parts and easier management. And yes, the terminology is different, but I don't think it is crazy what we ask there. Now, regardless of the complexity or the simplicity, if you like, of the infrastructure, there is some cost of switching. And we have created some financial incentives for customers who are interested in obviously going that step. So if you are a customer which is new to Citrix, actually, so you have used VMware before, you think that's the right path forward to go to Citrix, and you spend at least $50,000 annually for over a period of 3 years, you get 1 year for free. If you are an existing Citrix customer in the commercial land and you replace the parallel VMware environment, and that makes you spend about 50% more with us, you get unlimited capacity licensing from Citrix. And if you're an enterprise organization and your spending goes 25% up as part of that VMware replacement, you get 10% off the next renewal. And obviously, as enterprise customers are very large, big deals, the 10% is worth a lot of money. So I think each of those programs can certainly offset the cost of switching. But the only question that remains, in my opinion, is how we make it work. And this is where my former colleague Richard and the Ferroque team comes in. So Richard, how do we take it from here?
Thank you, Thomas. We're going to go through many different steps that are going to conduct a proper migration from Horizon to Citrix. First, you will want to assess your current environment. What kind of desktops are you using? Are they assigned? How are they deployed? And what resources are assigned to each of these? As you progress, it's essential to consider future functionality items. This is an opportune moment to transition from older software package to a newer one. Are there upcoming requirements that will necessitate additional resources? In other words, are you going to need more CPU and memory on your desktops? Now's a good time to calculate those in. These considerations will help you make an informed decision during the migration progress. That will give you the information you need to evaluate your options. Will you need a proof of concept? Do we need a new image, or can we reuse the current image that we're using on the Horizon environment? Once you have determined all of these items, you can calculate the target architecture. You want to advance? Okay. How many hosts, how many CPUs per host, how much RAM, etc. What are the target clients going to be supporting? Now we've determined what will be reused and what software and hardware must be purchased. That we have to determine what software and hardware will be purchased. That will take time to obtain all that equipment, unless you're planning on doing everything in the cloud. This is an excellent time to train your IT staff to support the infrastructure and your end users. Next, a migration plan will be set. It will determine the methods for transitioning the end users to the new environment. If some of the old equipment is going to be reutilized, a rolling migration might be required. If new hardware is being purchased, how many users do you want to move over at a time? And finally, the hardware is in and the plan is made, so it's time to build that environment. Once you've built the environment, you can conduct any required end user training on the new environment. Most companies then conduct a pilot. This will roll out a small portion of the environment for a test set of users. Any issues can crop up here without causing too much of an interruption to daily work. Now that the pilot has been completed successfully, you can move on to migrating your users in groups. You're usually going to use batches to migrate users over to the new environment. If you're small enough, you may just cut over in one night, but generally you're going to migrate a group of users at a time, make sure everything's working well, and then bring up the next set of users. And of course, once you've completed this, we'll be doing my favorite step, which is decommissioning the VMware platform. All of these steps require time. You can reduce some of that time by involving an experienced third party like Ferroque. We have done many migrations, and we know most items can get in the way and cause delays. By engaging a professional company, you can actually save money because the implementation can be done much quicker and with as little interruption as possible.
We've got some questions here. Question number one, even if Citrix solutions are simple as you explained, I need to get my admin trained on Citrix and there's a cost associated with this, or do you offer other help as well?
So I think I go with it. So I think from Citrix, we invest a lot in reducing the friction. Number one, we invest a lot in reducing the friction getting started with Citrix. So we simplify the UI, we add wizards wherever we can, we add like in-product messaging or in-product help in many places. So ideally, the learning curve is not as much, but obviously there is some learning, there's new things to learn. But so we recognize that and we try to remove the friction from that part as well. So the most important thing of all the changes we went through, also with new licensing and so on, is that we are making Citrix product trainings free of charge to customers. So all the electronic training, the online trainings, they will go. There's a lot of them already available on the training website Pluralsight, and all customers get free access to that. And we have an entire team obviously maintaining and adding more of those those trainings. So I think that should get the admin started. And obviously that is all in addition to what Ferroque can do as part of the design and the migration assistance they always do.
Yeah, I was going to hop in there and say that one of the one of the advantages of engaging a system integrator like Ferroque to do the work for you is that we will design everything up, so you won't have to learn about that environment and so forth. But also, as we're building it, we'll be showing you what we're doing, and when we're finished, we're going to show you how to use. So you get some pretty basic information from us as well. We don't want to build an environment for you and then walk away and you sit there and go, well, that's nice. What do we do with it? So we want to go ahead and give you a chance, show you a few things, show you how to go through some stuff. And then, of course, obviously, if it's a managed services, that makes it even easier for you.
All right. Another question that I got here is that we've been told by our Citrix, our VMware rep in the past that Citrix provisioning services is uber complicated. Is it really true, or do I, if I switch over to from Horizon to Citrix, do I have to use provisioning services, or is there any other options?
Shall I go then? I mean, I have to say it is not true, but I really believe it's not true. So here's the thing: it's like the image management as such is an integral part of our management stack, be that on-prem or on the cloud. And there is obviously two technologies. One, Todd just mentioned, provisioning services, which has its advantages, but it comes with a few complexities in terms of like you have to deploy a certain set of infrastructure components. The advantage of it is it is instant. So you roll out, you want to roll out a new version or a new image or a new configuration change, and all the machines have to do is to do a reboot, and they have the new version. Something goes wrong, you reboot them again, and you're back to the old version. So that with that complexity comes some advantages, especially in large scale. But there's a simpler, more integrated option, which is called machine creation services, or MCS, which really you don't have to do anything. It is just part of the stack, and when you want to create a new set of desktops, you just point it at, let's say, Azure or Google Cloud. You say you want to use this machine as a starting point, or the snapshot as a starting point. Please go and create me 100 of them or 1,000, and then it all just automatically works. So there is no complexity from that image management as such, and we have released a few things to make it even easier, make it versioning easier, make dynamic creation of machines easier, and so on. So we're operating large scale of our environments. There is some complexities in there, but it is, I would say it's very limited and easy to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And And I think that one of the value added that Ferroque Systems is going to be able to help you is that to help you navigate through the through the transition and help you design, assess and design, and actually help you deploy. We are so confident that that we're going to actually offer the migration services, up to 500 hours for free, because we think that we can actually do this for you and relatively in a smooth and painless way, that we're confident that we can do this for you at no cost to you. So there's no risk in your in the customer's court.
That's amazing.
I wanted to thank our audience for joining us today, as usual, and as always, it's great to have you here, and we really appreciate you taking time and energy to be with us to watch this webinar. We have another one coming up in a couple of weeks. It will be on NetScaler specifically, and so if you have any questions or you want to learn more about that, please join us. Information regarding that webinar will be out soon, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Bye, guys.
All right, thanks.